Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for September 14th. Today I'm going to talk about Ulm, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Cottage Garden, and the Kickstarter for Sagrada. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. Up first, Ulm is coming out from R&R Games. It's going to be an Essen release. This game sees you trying to expand your influence in the marketplace, kind of around a cathedral that's being built up. It has a really interesting action selection mechanic that I'm very jealous of. I wish I had designed it. It sounds very smart. Basically, there's a 3x3 grid of tiles, so 9 tiles, and each tile has an action on it. On your turn, you're going to take a tile and push that grid down, or across, however you want. Basically, shift the tiles by one, and you activate the 3 actions that are on that row or column of tiles. So it's going to be constantly changing kind of what you're trying to do and keep your opponents from doing. That's just such a smart idea. I'm really interested in kind of how the actions combine and evolve and that kind of thing. So definitely very interested for this one. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, a game that has gotten kind of a bunch of new energy and revitalized steam in the past couple of years, is going to get a standalone expansion called Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures. This is going to have 10 new cases, and it's actually going to even include a small campaign mode for 4 cases that take place in the Whitechapel area, where you're trying to track down Jack the Ripper in his famous killing spree, whatever, in 4 separate cases that kind of stack on each other. So this is supposed to be coming out in the 4th quarter of 2016, so that's right around the corner. Over on Board Game Geek, we just got a bunch of information on Uwe Rosenberg's new game, Cottage Garden. This is a 1 to 4 player game that looks a lot like Uwe Rosenberg's very popular 2-player game, Patchwork, because it uses those kind of Tetris-shaped tiles for you to build on your player board or whatever. In it, you're going to be planting gardens with the different shaped tiles that are actually called polyominoes. I was unaware of that term until this, but there you go. You learned something new. Unlike Patchwork, where you're just trying to kind of cover your entire space as efficiently as possible, in this game there are certain things, flower pots and stuff, that you don't want to build over. So you're trying to cover the entire area without covering certain different flower pots and things of that nature. So that's pretty interesting. It has a little bit of like push your luck, I guess, with like hoping you get the perfect piece, things of that nature. I'm a huge fan of Patchwork. I'm a huge fan of Uwe Rosenberg. So this is certainly an instant buy for me. This week's Kickstarter is for Sagrada from Floodgate Games. This is a 1 to 4 player dice drafting game. In it, you play artisans trying to craft the best stained glass window. You're balancing several different scoring conditions where it's like, you want this many of this color die, and you want them to be this number, or you want them to be in whatever order. So you're trying to figure out kind of the most efficient way to do that. Also, in the game, similar dies can't be next to each other. They can't be adjacent to each other. So as you go, it gets more complex and more challenging to kind of draft the correct die. So that's very interesting. It's got really beautiful artwork. It's got an interesting theme. Very simple design. Seems very, very cool. It is $35 right now on Kickstarter. So if that sounds interesting to you, go back that. All right, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date with all the goings-on in the board game world. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you go listen to the Dungeons & Dragons Actual Play podcast that I'm a part of that is linked in the description below. This week's question comes from @AndyMyersArt via Twitter. And they ask, who is your favorite board game artist? How much do you think of art when creating a game? Can art make or break a game? I've said it before, I'll say it again. My favorite board game artist is Vincent Dutriat. He did Lewis and Clark, New York 1901, Discoveries, a whole bunch of games. He has a very painterly style. I'm a huge fan of it. It's very evocative. His use of color is great. I am much more inclined to buy a game if he does artwork for it than if he doesn't. I'm also a big fan of Kwanchai, who did Catacombs. He's done a couple other games more recently, but I think Catacombs is kind of like his primo work. I'm a very big fan of the style of that game. There are a ton of really, really talented, interesting, good board game artists. Mainly what I look for is that they have a kind of a unified style and that they're unique, that they don't look like every other board game. Where, for example, a game like Blood Rage, I think, has really, really cool, evocative artwork, but at the same time, it looks exactly like games like that look. So I'm just not as drawn to it as somebody that has a little bit more of like a unique style. So the second part, how much do you think of art when creating a game? I think of it a whole lot. all of my designs that I work on definitely from the get-go have art as a part of it, and design, like graphic design, is something I think heavily about in a game, and kind of how it's going to look on a table and things of that nature. That's probably because I come from a background in art, so when I make prototypes, that's just a part of how I do it. So definitely a lot. And can art make or break a game? I don't think art can make a game. I don't think that there are certainly games that I own that I hold on to because they're very pretty and not because they're a great game. But if it's a bad game, I certainly, like, art won't fix that for me. I will pass on a bad game with great art. It probably helps sell it, but in terms of like longevity of that game, it can't make a game for me. But I think art can't break a great game, but it can certainly make a good game not very interesting. So I think having a pairing of great art with a great game is obviously the ideal, but great art with a mediocre game, I might hold on to that. Or a great game with mediocre artwork, I might hold on to that. So it can certainly elevate an okay game into the good category, and it can certainly take a good game down to the mediocre category. So I wouldn't say it makes or breaks it, but it's certainly a very important part of the game, in my opinion. Good question. Thanks for asking it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.